Hey, how's it going, guys? Alright, so let's talk about the Rainbow Yoda vehicle deck. So I'm kind of just gonna wing it quite a bit. So like the overall weaknesses I felt with the deck were that the 7 health point characters are the ones that actually have the damage sides, and you in theory have low probability of hitting the individual damage sides, because on Ezra you've got 2 sides for 1 and 2, and then on Rookie Pilot you have 2 sides both at +2. Secondary dilemma is that if your base side gets removed, you lose like large chunks of damage. So sometimes you kind of have to play pretty slow to either see if your opponent wiped out their entire hand, or preemptively like pulled the trigger on the removal. And things like doubt can cause ginormous issues with our base sets of character dice, because if they spend their resources, then on Ezra's die we pretty much have 4 blanks, because a doubt on that would +2 disrupt, special, and blank would all do nothing. And then on the Rookie Pilot, same thing. A doubt would just be straight up 4 blanks regardless of them having resources or not. On Yoda's side, we have the special and we have the 2 focus, but disrupt, discard, shield aren't necessarily the greatest of sides. Sure, we'll automatically get something, but depending on how much we care about that is pretty much determines how relevant that is. So single target things like doubt mess with us quite a bit. Hidden motive is okay. It's not as strong versus us, just because even though they'll get us off the preferred side, they're more likely to hit like Yoda's dice. And assuming we haven't just used up all of our rerolls, if we whiff the special, then we got pretty good odds to either get back to it or find the 2 focus. So overall, like those cheap 0-cost types of removals are very good against us. Sound the Alarm is very good against us, especially if they're kind of baiting and it like gets into that situation where we end up using specials and focus at the end to then do all the stuff. But for the most part, you can normally kind of find out by then, I guess is how I'd say it, because a lot of people will claim once they know the jig is up, and B, we have those 4 cards in deck that help us or allow us to like kind of peek at the opponent's hand and rip removal out. So there's pretty good odds on one of the main turns you'll have Friends in Low Places or Scruffy. Current upgrade wise, DHs I'm super duper happy with. Put them on a target that they're not going after, and if they switch targets, they made life a little bit harder on themselves, or we get to use the die multiple times in general. DH though, like later into the game, once guys are starting to die or get hurt, and we're looking at losing a dude, it can become a little brutal. But if we still think of it as the 1 resource for 2 damage is a fine equivalent trade, as long as we got to use the die for 2 damage, then you're kind of okay with that. Holdout, on the other hand, the extra resource requirement makes things very, very tough from a couple of standpoints. One is that if you jam it down, you no longer have the ability to cast removal. The second thing is that it makes it harder for you to get your vehicles out. And like, holdout is very great, but the vehicles in theory are still just much better. Y-Wings, you're looking at the 2 base and then 4 damage and 4 damage, because in theory they shouldn't have resources. Resistance Bomber, you're looking at 3 damage, then 6 damage for 2. T-47 has 2 sets of the base 2 damage that side. Fang Fighter has a 2 and a 3. These are all without pay sides and our bases. So the vehicles are just much better. So like my current theory is that we'll cut a Force Wave, probably for Z95 Headhunter, and then there's potential for maybe cutting a holdout for a second one. It does a couple things for us there. It gets us to the 3 damage side for a resource. So like if we just compare it to holdout, whilst holdout is faster, and you know, you can get reusage on character death. The dilemma is this: so like they both have the 1 base damage, they both have a resource side. The Z95 has 2 blinks, which makes it much worse versus Feel Your Anger. But like that may kind of be okay. They both have 2 damage for her resource. The differential is going to be that Headhunter has 3 for a resource, whereas Holdout has the +2. So like when we're looking to operate with, you know, very minimal resource consumption, Holdout is better in that scenario where we just want to show up with +2. But Z95 can hit a bit harder, so it changes the math for us a bit more. We could potentially end up saving a die, because in most of the situations where we needed 5 damage, we had to use 3 dice, and it would be, you know, 1 +2 +2. Where with the Z95 we can use the 3 and then a +2. So it helps there. It also helps in terms of rally aid. So we always pretty much needed a resource available out for rallying into one of our vehicles outside of T47. So it lets us set that up a bit easier. And like realistically, it's considerably worse than ETA2 Interceptor, but the fact that you can rally it down first, and then use Yoda to fix it to the 3 and get the resource, is relatively huge. There are a lot of different situations where, like, let's say you just want to get it down and you want to use the 1 on it or the resource, like, you're still 33% to hit those, so it doesn't feel as bad. You get the reroll off of the rookie, and sometimes you'll you know, if you only have the 1 vehicle, you'll hit the actual side, you'll end up kind of wasting the rookie reroll. And like that 2 to 3 differential cost is relatively large. Even going into round 1, the Z95 will let us jam it down and jam a DH, and then do whatever we're doing, or, you know, let us jam it down, then have access to pin down or removal. Whereas all the 3 drops, we then have to actually pay 3 for them immediately. So it's a little tough, because Z95, like, as we're using it, the cost for it is kind of becoming too much of a pain in the ass. So like, you know, let's say we drop it round 1, we use the 3, then we've essentially paid 3 for it to do 3 damage, and every time we do 3 there, we're essentially having like an upkeep cost of 1 to do the 3 damage. Whereas if, you know, in the situation with Fang Fighter, we paid the 1 additional right away, but every time we do the 3, it didn't cost us anything. But like I said, it's all about like opportunity type stuff. Getting it down, Z95 is a little bit easier, but once again, makes it hard, especially if you're playing against any decks that have like Disrupt and stuff. Because now if you have the 3 damage showing, if they leave a Disrupt up, they've essentially kind of choked that 3. Whereas most of the other dice in our deck don't really have those pay sides that we're kind of stuck on. So we'll kind of see where that goes, but the 3 damage could just be a huge differential thing. Like, there was a point in time where I considered X8, because X8 would let me, you know, switch the sides, and I could go find a base if I needed to, and it still had the 3. But if my dude died, I lost the die permanently, which isn't too great. So we'll test that out, kind of see what happens. The blanks do scare me from a force misdirection on blinks or Feel Your Anger perspective, or even easy pickings on multiple blanks. But like I said, the 3 for a resource could be the turning point there, and the fact that when you're doing Rally Aid stuff, Rally Aid can get it down for free. So Rally Aid can't get Holdout down for free; it still costs at least 1. So you kind of like there's difficulties, because if you try to do, let's say, like Rally Aid onto a Holdout, you would pretty much need your guy to have not been, you know, activated. And if your guy's not activated, so if your guy's not activated and you're going into like your last card, that means you're pretty much going to have a few naked rolls coming out. Like you're going to roll out the Holdout with the probably rookie pilot, and, you know, have 0 rerolls left, assuming you don't, you know, kind of just YOLO the situation. So the whole Z95 thing works a bit better with our battlefield and potentially keeping it to start, as well as just Rally Aid and it being cheaper overall. So if we go into a round with 3 resources, we can jam it down, do whatever, get it in play, do our rerolls, then have Yoda get the money back so that we can use it. Whereas the 3 is just really restrictive. So this is all theoretical. But I've already been playing before with 6 3-drops and 2 2-drops for vehicles, and then 2 2s and 2 1s. So sometimes a lot of time cheaper is better. And if we use the 1, it didn't cost us anything. And if I've used the 1 on holdout before, I've also gained a resource off holdout. So in those situations, it ends up being similar, and it seems like it'd be a fine option. But yeah, so Force Wave out probably for resistance, and then a holdout out for Z95, unless we decide we want to have 2 Z95s. But I think the resistance goes a long way towards beating those tankier type decks. Yoda ends up not being the main target. Usually ends up going Ezra, and if a rookie pilot has a DH, they go after him. So at some point you'll get to the point where you have several vehicles, and now Yoda is switching those dice to the max sides relatively easily, because you don't have a ton of dice to work with at that point. So quick Scruffy, peeked at their hand, got the event out. Now you're looking to flip your resistance to a 6, and in those 1v1 situations, resistance for 6 is relatively disgusting. So that's at least the theory. We only get to use Resistance Bomber 3 times, but I think for the most part, if we've used any vehicle 3 times for 3 damage, even indirect, it's going to go and probably win us the game. Not to mention, if you have the 6-up side showing up, and the resources available to use it, if people have Force Illusion, they may let you hit for like 4 direct, because the 6 indirect is kind of just like, damn, I want to Illusion 6. So then what you get to do after is you can kind of like refix the die over to a 3, and then just resolve 3 because you got your 4 in. If they block the 4, now you just jam the 6 in. Because like in these 20 to 22 health decks, when they take 6, like for the most part, it's probably going to get split up like 3 and 3 or 4 and 2. So now your leftover direct could just actually take a guy off the table. And that's if they already haven't been taking damage. Because if they've already taken damage, you've done 5 into a guy, the 6 might actually just go straight into the other guy. So like it still gets you closer to killing someone. And in those situations, you can kind of do weird, tricky snipe plays, because they'll have whatever dice on the table, and now you're representing 4 or 5 damage. You get to choose which guy to kill, yada yada. It's a bit weaker in some of our more preferred matchups. Like it's not amazing versus Sabine, but in theory, 6 damage is 1/3 of their total health pool. So even if it's going 6 straight into Ezra, that'll shut off like Impersonate. We can hit 1 to kill him, and pretty much lower their pseudo damage output, as well as their ability to kind of mess with our resources or take our steal resources back, or even just generate additional resources with the resource side. So like realistically, there's not a huge issue there. It's just that when you don't have the ability to pay the 2, you're only looking at 33% for damage, and you don't have anything else you really want there unless you're really looking for that 2 disrupt. Due to the lack of C3PO, we can no longer just jam 6 direct at somebody. But who knows? Maybe eventually we'll put 1 C3PO back in. See what else is there. So removal-wise, where I don't know, like for the most part, I've been relatively happy with the removal suite, because the single target is relatively good for most of the meta. Like any of the Yoda decks are fixing their dice over. If they're not doing it at like trick speed, then they're looking to fix things into like 3s. So then when we're doing flank to stop a 3, pin down to stop a 3, easy picking to stop 2 of those specials or whatever, those are huge damage swings. and a lot of people just don't have that much removal that's similar. So like we have a couple different options here. We could potentially put in a garbage chute. We've scaled back one of the holdouts and the force wave, so the garbage chute no longer feels as terrible. Also, if one of our guys gonna, so like let's say Ezra's gonna die, we could potentially just stop protecting him, and then just garbage shoot him to stop, you know, whatever big damage, and then they use their leftover damage to kill him, or they go get more damage to then take him off the table, and we're kind of like okay with that. Because as long as we're getting in, you know, a bit higher damage than them while building up, things are fine, because they'll have permanently lost dice, while we've kind of maintained status quo, or like gained potentially. So running one garbage chute's fine. Finding the cut spots is the hard one. Seeing as we are kind of increasing the vehicles back to like that 9 area, deciding what to cut is the hard part. We really don't want to, we'd love to have a second easy picking, but the thing is that Ezra dies too fast. If we get to a point where everyone's attacking Yoda first, then we, you know, anytime we get shields, we still go 1-on-1, and then we could potentially put the second easy picking back in, until people start to adapt and then go back to killing Ezra again. But for the most part, most people go straight after Ezra. It shuts down easy pickings and it shuts down Philps. We could potentially try to rock a random sound the alarm, which would punish people from you know, getting all their dice out and re-rolling until they have damage. We could potentially have a mind trick for those situations where people get all their dice in the pool and they're trying to like kind of beat us into submission. But like those cards are weak overall once you've already started to take chunks of damage. Sound the alarm doesn't remove their dice, so that they can kind of discard and re-roll and get the damage back. Overconfidence could be potentially good there. We have a bunch of single targeted die removal, so in theory, if we're looking at, you know, our single target dice removal, and then, you know, one of those, you know, we can just if they're showing, you know, the good rollouts, or they focus into, you know, big chunks of damage, we can actually hit 2 of their dice. And whilst they'll still probably have 50% odds to get one of the sets of damage, we did auto kill one, and there was a pretty solid chance of the other die kind of just being on a side we don't care about anymore. So then they kind of have to potentially re-roll and whatnot. But it's kind of doubt-esque at that point. It's just, overconfidence is still very good in a lot of spots where we're content with the other things. So you know, Hondo Yoda, like, you're always looking to get rid of specials, so you get to eat those. If Ezra, you know, opponent Sabine Ezra rolls out, damage-wise, you can overconfidence them. You're guaranteed to pretty much, you know, eat the special. And then the only dilemma is you might end up leaving them with the +2 after. Where a lot of time I'd prefer to, you know, get disrupted and then like just eat their +2, because Sabine has much lower odds of actually showing viable damage. So there's a bunch of different ways to play and do the deck. Making the adjustments for the removal is a bit tougher, especially on me, because I like all the single target removal and the fact that it's just so good throughout the game. There's so many decks that are just 2-character decks, so flanks are pretty much always live. The rookie pilots just standing there teasing people. You know, easy pick is the one of the field medic. In theory, we could probably get rid of. The main reason for not getting rid of field medic, though, is that field medic is relatively good off of rally aid. So, you know, we have the extra card available. We don't have a vehicle or something we're trying to get down. We've taken damage. Rally aid's good at being used for that. Whereas the removal, anytime we're really trying to cast removal, we're most likely not just straight up cracking a rally aid. So it's tough from that standpoint. And then our other one of which is overconfidence. So, like, we could, if we felt that the removal was much more necessary, we could make another adjustment, like maybe cut the other holdout, see what's going on, like from that standpoint. But it's tough to gauge. Like, Force Wave is very, very good in general, but it has a resource consumption thing. It required us to pretty much have not rolled out Yoda. If people were attacking Yoda, sure, we put it on Ezra, but the extra resource consumption per round is definitely worth the 5 damage you do to them and pretty much 1 to yourself. once you're ahead, the card's relatively bad, so like you kind of don't care about it. But I guess if you're already ahead and they only have one guy, it still does 2 indirect, and you get to do the Yoda chains. 1 second. We have plenty of time. I got here way too early. Sorry, I'm just adjusting. Let me think. I don't think I would touch the hand removal suite. Friends in Low Places and Scruffy are very strong. I would potentially consider cutting a Scruffy if, like, let's say Sabine goes out of the meta. I wouldn't mind cutting a Scruffy. Like, let's say you're seeing a ton of Rayla stairs, or Kylo Anakin's. Scruffy becomes worse because there's not normally some big event you're concerned about. Whereas versus Sabine, like, you really want to rip out Never Tell Me the Odds of hyperspace jumps, second chance. But versus the other decks, they're going to have doubts and synchros, and while you're concerned about them, there's not some overwhelming thing where you want to necessarily pay a resource to go into their hand. But as of right now, I would not touch it, just because Sabine Ezra is still very good, and there's just a lot of decks in general. Lightsaber pull into, like, let's say someone's additional weapon, Shoto, Ancient, and then scruffing it out of their hand, is a pretty good play. You got to be careful for people baiting you, but someone jams a first Shoto on Qui-Gon, then lightsaber pulls a second Shoto. Yeah, you're gonna scruffy that second Shoto. Like, in theory, if they were doing that to begin with, and they lightsaber pulled it first, then you kind of may have let it go. But if they had the 4 resources, then they cast the first one. You're like, okay, I'll call for the second one. Because sometimes there's just shit you don't want to see. Like, in theory, ripping out CQA could be well worth it because your hand is relatively important, but you kind of got to gauge. Like, we only have 30 spots to work with, so you gotta move stuff around sometimes. But so we have 11 removal. At the time, I had 11. No, I had 12 dice upgrades, or upgrades in vehicles. Yes, I just ripped stuff off my lip. I have like a scab. I can cut it. We have the 4 for the Scruffies and Philps, 2 for Rally Aids, and we have an R2D2. So I guess he should count as the other one, but he's not expected to really do damage. He's more for fixing. I wouldn't cut the R2D2. I think he's very good. I wouldn't sit there trying to force C-3PO in. If the Z95s and the Resistance Bombers end up being very, very strong, you could potentially try to find a slot for the C-3PO. C-3PO in general is very good for a few things. One, he can force any of your missed Yoda rolls into the Yoda special. So you can essentially treat him like half of a Yoda special. What I mean by that is, so like, let's say one of your 2 Yoda dice is showing a special, but the other one's not. So if you chain them, you're looking special, probably get a resource, flip the other one, special, get a resource, flip a die. So you've had resource, flip a die. Now, instead, if you use C-3PO on that Yoda die, you've made it now, okay, well, the first one did special, flip some other die, and the C-3PO on the other Yoda would go special, flip another die. So in that situation, you would have turned C-3PO into like a focus side. And it still gives you like the whole leeway with, I want to turn my Resistance Bomber or my Fang Fighter into like 3 damage, or, they're showing, 3s and you want to turn them into triple focus. So that there's some definitive freedom there. Just not necessarily always the greatest. Whereas like R2-D2 has both special sides that'll let you draw a card and flip a die. So on its own, in theory, it could have flipped a die and then got you the card to get rerolls with, which can be counterintuitive at times. But seeing as we're playing with Rally Aid, the whole drawing a card thing can go a long way, because if we've Rally Aided into our vehicle, or our last card being the vehicle, so that we didn't like randomly whiff it, then we get to roll that out. Okay, now we get to R2-D2, fix whatever die is the least likely to get fixed properly or via reroll. Draw the card, pitch the card to reroll the other dice that have better odds. Because, like, there's even times where you'll be like, okay, you know, flip, you know, the Yoda die to a 2 focus, so that you'll have maintained your focus for later after drawing the card. Then you can pitch to reroll, you know, your other 4 dice, and then make your adjustments from there. So in my mind, that's what makes the most sense. Resistance Bomber also gives people the best chance to mess up and throw the game away themselves. You'll see a lot of times where people don't know how to take indirect damage properly. So, like, it's kind of one of those tough ones. Do you do it knowing that the opponent isn't very high level to abuse them? Like, do you run a card in your deck to be like, all right, well, let me abuse the noobs, you know? But there are high level players that don't always do it correctly either. That there are just minor adjustments. Sometimes you'll put one in the wrong place, one, you know, whatever. And like that one will go and get you a kill because people just weren't realizing that you could, you know, flip your other dice and show 7. So instead of putting both of their guys at 8 left, they didn't monitor it, and they were like, oh, well, 6 and 8's fine. Or, you know, sorry, 7 and 9 is fine. And then you 7 kill their guy off, and it's like, oh. Or like you sneakied a rally aid to get a vehicle down, and then use that to get the kill because you had focus or shield specials on Yoda. So, I don't know. That's it for the most part for, like, cards I'd be attempting to do stuff with. You could kind of go in and run, like, a defender or a block, if, you know, Ayla Ray is really being that bad, but it's a little tough because, like, if we could do chunks of damage split more easily, we could really consider just going and knocking Ray's shields off, if she got 1 or 2, and then smashing Ayla. But as soon as she got the 2 upgrades up, she's going to get the hit every round. And then ripping our shields could be potentially, you know, brutal, because if we haven't hit her shield off, she's going to rip our shield and hit us for 1. So she can change damage around. But, like, so I tend to try to focus her down. But you kind of gonna need to see what's going on and kind of go from there. Like, it's really hard to play around, like, guards for 3s. The big card you don't want to see is Ray's lightsaber. There were numerous games where I take their battlefield, I grab the shields, I'm going, okay, well, they can only, you know, pretty much caution onto Ray to get her ability going, and then I could kind of just go attack Ayla, and they've given up an Ayla die, so I'm okay with it. But then the first thing they do is just jam down Ray's saber, and I'm just like, oh, fuck, thank you. Because, like, now they don't have money for me to steal. They only have that realistically, they only have that 1 pay side that's pretty tough. They got another die for 50% for base damage, melee, so CQAs became better. It's a big die, so guards became better. Like, they have not amazingly high odds to roll, like, the 2 bases off of the character dice. But once you start to include the Ray Saber or an heirloom, you've kind of, like, the percentages for having a guard for 2 just become much higher, and a guard for 2 can be really detrimental. Because if we don't have the resource, then it makes it really hard to find base sides. So, like, base sides on Ezra, if we had a Z95, there's only 1 base side there. DHs, there's only 1 base side that doesn't cost money. Same with Holdout. Fang Fighter has 2, T47 has 2, but, like, they're gonna eat that die as part of whatever's going on. So I don't know. The issue with that match could just be, you know, several fold. I think I just don't have enough reps against it to really think, okay, this is how I need to kill it. But there's also, like, the differential of playing against, you know, a regular player playing Rayla, and then playing someone like, you know, Bobby Sapphire, who's gonna sit there and be like, and fucking torture the shit out of me because I'm sitting there wondering what's in his goddamn hand, and I don't want to pay the 1 for the scruffy. And then I do it, and I'm sitting at, like, a fucking CQA and a synchronicity, and I'm just like, well, do I let my guy die faster, or do I let my fucking hand blow up? Then, like, that gets kind of tough. So, but, like, that's it for the most part for the deck. I think it's very tight from a deck construction standpoint. Like, you can remove around all those pieces all sorts over the place based on how you want to play. Like, you could technically cut the other Holdout, and then probably cut removal and go more vehicle based and have, like, tech team, but I think that would be pretty terrible for the deck. You would kind of weaken exactly like what you have going, which is that your Yoda is essentially the whole, like, resource generator C-3PO, and you just jam down your vehicles and guns and be able to hit hard and fast, and don't give people enough time, because trying to attack you is really hard while they're getting kind of choked out by resources. So most of the format was hero decks, and the hero decks all had, like, you know, pretty much one cost removal. Like Sabine Ezra has a bunch of zeros and hasties and Lothcats, but it's all single targeted. It's very specific. If I had the battlefield, I shut down the hasties. If they don't have a die, their Lothcats are dead. So like they had, like, you can kind of tell what was going on, and then like you're flipping Scruffian for event anyways, to take out Never Tell Me the Odds or jumps. So things got a little bit easier from there. And then, you know, Bobby Sapphire Bobo had Entangle in his list, so it was another card that needed to get scruffied, but it was hard for them to maintain the resources to do things like that. Because, like, essentially we are potentially a resource choke deck, or we threaten it enough where we don't have much of an issue going Yoda, get us a resource, flip Ezra die, steal their resource, because it's kind of similar to doing the whole Yoda chain. Like, you're still getting 3 effects off of it, whereas if you go like Yoda special, get a resource, you know, flip Ezra to like a disrupt, and you disrupt, you don't feel as good there, because, you know, Yoda had 2 sides for his die, you got 1. The flip fixed your other die, but it wasn't a huge impact. When you flip the damage, you feel kind of okay about it. It's not great until you like actually actively kill a guy or force your opponent to play weird. But once a guy goes down, you've killed 2 dice. Like, now all those 4 focus sides have come into pretty much brilliance, because you've killed 2 dice permanently for the whole game. Hand wise, starting hands, if I'm looking to do stuff, I would really like to start pretty much with like a Friends in Low Places, a piece of removal, or a caution, like a T-47, a DH, and then maybe like a Rally 8 or something. I'm not like built solely on like the Rally 8 plan, but if you start on your battlefield, you can go T-47 into DH, which is a really strong start, because now you're looking at 7 dice, and, you know, you caution one of your jank dice away to get 3 shields on whoever they're targeting, and you still have Friends in Low Places to get the piece of removal out of their hand, so you get to go whack them real hard, and you can just ditch your Rally at that point to reroll if you want. But if you end up hitting like a Yoda special or 2 focus, then you kind of end up being in a good place, because your 1 reroll plus the additional reroll on rookie off of the vehicle just overall puts you in a good spot to be able to fix enough of your dice where you're content, or you just bake them. But yeah, so I'm gonna try to make a video with like some mulligans and playing against certain decks to get you guys ready for Store Champ season. I 100% would be all about the vehicle deck. We just have to kind of shore up that whole like stairs issue. I think if Kylo Anakin's going to be seeing a bunch of play, stairs is going to be harder to use overall. If stairs is harder to use, then, you know, this becomes a prime choice to fight against those Kylo Anakins. And if people, you know, still pull Sabine out versus that, it's a good place there. Yoda Hondo, it's very good versus, because your Ezra die trades with their Hondo dice, and you can like just kill Force Wave every time it comes out, because their action sheet is based on like force speed or playing something after their dice are in the pool. And since Hondo can't carry the force speed, that means Force Wave came out, and, you know, you got access to killing it prior to them being able to resolve any of that stuff. So once again, like, you know, that puts you in a great place. So we will kind of, you know, play it by ear, see how it goes, make some tweaks, but assuming that we're not going to get Way of the Force until like July, then we're looking at this meta for a bit, and you know, Rainbow Yoda vehicles looks like a great choice to continue the path with. It also teaches you, you know, fundamentals behind like focusing damage and looking for those plays. Like I said, most of my decks I play are just really slow, so having access to a deck that's like that is pretty good for teaching you the ability to look for like the damage. There's far too often people don't realize the damage that's coming out, looking at it, the focus ability, what's the brunt of what I can take here. So it should teach you, hopefully, how to look for that, as long as you're not just oopsing into wins. But let me know if you guys have questions, concerns, thoughts. Try to play it by ear and make adjustments. Who knows? There might be an ETA coming into the deck at some point soon, because it's good in the mirror. You can, tap down your opponent's, like whatever vehicle, but trading your vehicle for theirs may not be great, unless you're kind of already just way ahead. But it is good versus against the more 4-wide vehicle decks, because they already have resource issues, so you get to choke them out, and then when they finally get their vehicle down, you get to choke down that vehicle, and cause lots of issues for them overall. Like, even just, you can tap down like a rally aid, because they discard to their last card, and they're just like, oh shit, I didn't realize that. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let me know. Deuces.